There's just so much going on at one time that you can't even get a grasp of it. It's like a carnival. And like you're going around to all the booths, and at the booths, there are people like snorting cocaine instead of beanbag tosses and like balloon popping games. They're like doing cocaine and shooting up heroin. Like there can actually be so much going on that you just walk around, and like if you stop at each group of people, it seems like each group is doing something to either get more fucked up or they're like playing a drinking game or something. And when all that's going on, no one's like keeping track of each other, and stuff just gets out of hand. And it's at parties like that when things get really dangerous, when there's just so much stuff. Ultimately, at this age, people just like getting messed up, I think. To put it in blunt terms, as sad as it is, people will do anything to go out, get their next drink, and I guess parties provide an environment for that. There's a certain culture around it, like people always want to like be at the biggest party. That's where everything happens. People want to be involved in that. Say like most of the kids there are drinking and people are having fun, like they're having fun drinking, but then some kid decides that he wants to do cocaine. So him and a couple of his buddies go out, find some cocaine, either do it wherever they are, bring it back to the party, and like things start going crazy. Like people just start acting in ways that you wouldn't expect high schoolers to. Like when you go to a party, there are a bunch of different people there, and different people like to do different things, and different people have access to different things. So at parties, everyone just kind of brings what they got. So I've seen parties like where you walk into one room, people are doing cocaine, and like in another room, they're drinking, and outside, they're smoking. A couple of my friends around this area have said that they've been to parties where people are doing meth and cocaine and heroin, like they're shooting up just right at the bar. And then they're drinking, they're smoking, just they're doing everything. And it's really scary just to see everything going on sometimes. It's not bad if you know how to control yourself and if you know what your limits are, but when you're seeing other people who are getting that messed up and they're putting themselves at that much risk, it's kind of scary to see sometimes.
On purpose, I have done marijuana. I have taken Adderall pills, some other type of pill that I don't know what it was, and coke. And then on accident, I've accidentally done heroin. I've drank in school. Someone brought it to school. It was my freshman year. And downed a Gatorade bottle of vodka and Gatorade before like second period. And then smoking, definitely a lot during lunch. You go out for lunch and then come back and you're high. I guess whenever I have money, I get coke, and I do Adderall a lot. Mostly like snorting that before school. It's definitely fun. That's why I haven't stopped yet. It's not fun when you hit like that point. Like when I accidentally did heroin, that was awful. And I would never do that again. I puked and had the sweats and like didn't know where I was, or smoking too much weed. That's awful. But like if you know how much to do, or you find the drug that works with you, then like I don't know, there's no stopping you.
There's a lot of money in this community, and there's a lot of parents who will just willingly give their kids money without knowing what they're going to spend it on. I've always seen those parents who either they're upstairs drinking and a couple kids go up and start hanging out with them, or they actually come down to the party and start drinking with the kids. And like, while you're there, it's funny to see, but it's also kind of weird.
With like cocaine, it's almost like $100 a gram depending on where you go or the quality of it. So like in poor areas, like you're not going to be able to have the access to that unless you're going and robbing someone. Like the same thing with heroin. Heroin's expensive like that as well, and everyone either has a job here or has their parents' ATM cards and are able to access it and don't care because they have unlimited money to it. It's actually pretty easy. Like when I was younger, I would have thought that you can't find it anywhere, but like, coming to parties now, you can get it anywhere. Or you have drug dealers that come to these sophomore, junior parties just to find people that they can sell to. And for me, like I can call someone and have it within an hour.
There's a lot of money in the community, but there's also a lot of access to illicit substances. It's been increasing recently, and people are now able to get things like heroin, like cocaine. It's just a lot of things that didn't used to be out there that are out there now.
I've had people like get in the car and be like slosh drunk, and I have to pull them out of their car and take their keys away from them because they think that they're going to drive home. Or I've had people lose their vision, not like permanently, but like for that night from like doing coke or something because it dilates your pupils that much.
Like if something happens at the party where people have to leave, or if like police start coming, kids, no matter how drunk they are, will just hop in their car and get as far away from it as they can.
I don't drink as much anymore because I would take like 4 or 5 shots and then wonder why it's not hitting me yet, and then it hits me like a brick wall, and I just keep going because then after that, like my brain isn't functioning anymore. I remember like coming in and out of focus, like probably 2 hours in between each other, like just like having like little glimpses of that party or that moment and not remembering anything else. And I've always been like aware of like, yeah, it's hurting my body. Yeah, it's taking like life or like time off my life and that type thing. It's not as apparent because we're so young.
Chamberlain Delon Ivy II was my miracle baby. He was outstanding, energetic. A lot of people thought he was quiet, but that he wasn't. He had more personality than, anybody that I've known. He brought people together. He knew how to just believe in everybody and know that everybody had some good in them. His trust in people sometimes I thought was a little much. But his thing was to live life and make sure everybody had a friend. I don't think he believed anybody had any bad in them. He felt like everybody was his friend, and I tried to tell him everybody wasn't. I guess he just thought people was genuine all the time. But that's not how the world is. I knew it was time for me to let him grow up, so I kind of tried to let him fly. Now I wish I would have held him back. You know, because I'm thinking maybe I would still have him here with me now. Everything that come behind teenage drugs and teenage alcohol is senseless. I lost mine to a senseless situation, and he could still be here. Drug use is a dangerous issue and situation that I just know kids, I'm just lost right now.
We were dispatched to what seemed like it was a burglary in progress. Everybody went there thinking one thing. After a little bit of being on scene, it went from going to looking for a potential suspect to looking for a potential injured person. Originally, I was set up with one of the canine units, and we were tracking around the neighborhood, which we didn't realize at the time, but the canine was actually tracking around, the right area, but we didn't know at the time to be looking in the water. After a little while, a neighbor came outside and said, "Hey, are you guys here because of the loud splash that we heard behind our house?" And we were like, "No, what?" And they kind of gave us a general idea of where it was. I was assigned to now be on the boat to help with the search and rescue. After about our third circle on the cove of where the splash was heard, I was at the front of the boat, shining a spotlight in the water, and I noticed a reflection in the water. I told them to slow the boat down. I shined the spotlight on the reflection, realized it was a shoe. I started panning up the shoe, and that's when I found the silhouette of the individual we were looking for. At that time, I notified my supervisor that he was located. The fire department, they were able to lift him up enough, but they couldn't get him out. So I actually had to get down in the water, hook him, and drag him up onto the boat. So, even to this day, when I think about it, it still kind of haunts me, because it's one thing, when you find somebody that you know exactly where they're going to be. It's another thing when you're kind of just searching around and boom, there they are in front of you, in the dark. So, yeah, I have been involved in similar type things, but for some reason this one just, stands out.
December 17th at 9:15 was the last time I talked to my child. 10:30 was the last text I received from him. "Hey, Mom, I'm fine. Everything is going good. I'm okay. I love you. That's what he sent me. Not a day is guaranteed to anybody at all, especially when you put yourself in situations like that. You can be here 1 minute, next minute, your parents gonna be suffering just like me. Your friends will be suffering just like me. This is my son. This is my baby.
People still like to party, and they're gonna keep him in the back of their minds, but they're still gonna do what they've always done.
You cannot put a price on a human life. After doing this work, undercover especially for the last 7 years, that's not true. I see people put a price on their life all the time. And for our last overdose victim that lost his life, he put a price on his life for $20. $20 is what it cost him to buy a sack of his drug of choice, and when he pushed it through his arms, it killed him, right? So he absolutely put a price on his life, and it was $20. I am a detective in a unit which my primary role is that of a undercover operator, and the main part of my job is to kind of go where marked police officers in uniform can't get to. If you had asked me 5 years ago what I thought I'd be doing in the undercover world, my answer would not be high school students. The party scene itself has not changed. It hasn't changed since when I was in high school, and guess what? The party scene's not going to change for when the high schoolers now have children that are in high school. The scene's always the same. That scene is where everybody's together in a group, we're having a good time, and then somebody shows up with something that they shouldn't have, right? That's when that peer pressure kicks in and the hard decisions have to be made. And with parents' involvement, it's, I believe what's happening is these parents are either wanting to be the cool parents and known as the cool parents, which is absolutely ridiculous, or they are in a position where they feel like they're actually being responsible by allowing these parties to take place in their house, which actually is creating a false sense of security. Or the last thing is, I think that these parents, unfortunately, just don't have the courage to tell their kids no. And a lot of times that's what these teenagers need, is just to hear no, this isn't appropriate and it's not going to happen. I've actually been involved in situations where I've been buying drugs from a parent, and their child was in the room while it was happening. They were very aware of it, what was happening, and it is, even to me as the officer who is supposed to be the big bad guy and trying to be Mr. Tough Skin, breaks my heart to see that happen, especially in the North Fulton area where we do have a lot of money, if you will. They like to provide money to their children, no questions asked. I worked a situation where a teenager was bragging to me that he can get money from his parents anytime he asks for it, and they never ask him any questions. I don't understand that. As a parent myself, how are you not asking what your child is spending their money on? That's a huge indicator of what they're involved in. All right, so One of the things that they may try to hide some of the stuff from you parents is in cans that look like this, or maybe even like this. As you can see here, this is a storage compartment. All right, we can buy this on the internet. Several search warrants I've worked in the past, this is where we're finding drugs, especially in with teenage kids. They want to hide it the best that they can, so they can hide it from their parents, and you won't find it. Vape's very popular right now, and I have been in locations where I have watched kids actually use these. This area right here is commonly used with nicotine, but they're filling it with THC oil. And they will actually, if their parents allow them to vape at the house, they'll actually smoke this right in front of them. Parents will have no idea that this is actually marijuana that they're smoking in here.
I think the mindset of some parents is well, if they're at least if they're at my house, I can control it, or I can protect them from something bad happening. And so they either allow it or participate with it going on. And a couple of the serious incidences that we've had to respond to recently, it was at parents' house with the knowledge of the parents, and we had people die. Unfortunately, you see everything, and it's one of the most disheartening things in my job is seeing the things that people are putting into their bodies. But we've run across meth, marijuana is prevalent, heroin is more and more prevalent. Haven't seen as much cocaine when we're talking in the high school type age parties, but it's there. See acid and ecstasy, actually pretty prevalent. So there's been a few where we've had some pretty serious illnesses due to ecstasy and heroin are the major causes of a lot of the medical problems when we go to those parties.
When they're on some of these drugs, they have no mind of what they're doing. And if they were to step back and see this is how they're acting, and that, you know, it'd probably scare them straight. It's quite possible. And you know, sometimes some kids don't have that chance because it's the first time they do it. They ingest that substance and they die from it.
We had a young girl who had gone unconscious at a high school party, and the two teenagers who were throwing the party were afraid to call to make a report, and eventually she died. Then when they called the next day, it was too late. She had already passed away. The other example I could think of was a party with minors again, and the neighbors called in the disturbance. When we got there, it turned out that in addition to the noise and the underage drinking, there were 2 victims of possible rape in the house. One of them was unconscious. I would absolutely encourage them without delay to call. You don't have to give your name. You'll be asked your name, but you don't have to give your name. And give as much detail and just answer the questions. All the questions we do ask are for a purpose, and it's so it can help us identify the proper response, so we could send the right people and the right number of units that we need. And they won't get in trouble if they're trying to help someone out. It's better than a tragedy and telling a parent that their child has passed away.
If you've ever attended a high school funeral for a classmate, how are you not aware of the consequences of your actions and being involved in this type of stuff? In my line of work, it is already so difficult to deal with the loss of a teenager's death, the loss of a life. And it's also hard for us, in my line of work, to watch these teenagers kind of start going down this path, this dark path, if you will. I don't know if you guys know, I've been doing undercover work for the last 7 years. I've never done an interview. I've never been on film, other than surveillance videos or other police officers recording me purchase drugs or selling of drugs. This hits so close to my heart right now simply because I'm tired of watching teenagers who have so much life to live, so many more years, throwing it away because in a spur of the moment decision, right? I think this is going to be cool. This is going to make me feel great. This is going to be awesome. Or my buddy is telling me, you need to do this. And, they don't have the courage to stand up and say no. If I can make an impact with just one of your viewers and let them know you don't want to see what I see, and you don't want to see what these officers are responding to, what the dispatchers are getting the phone calls from, what the firemen are having to respond to. If you really value any part of your life, if you value those around you, if you value the friendships that you have, then you're going to take into account that it is not worth it for me to roll the dice and risk dying just to see if I can feel better for an hour, for 30 minutes, whatever the case may be.
That's something we wake up and see on the news in the morning, like, oh yeah, it happened again, darn. I now know to be a lot more cautious with things like this. Before this happened and everything was all good, like I was never thinking about the consequences. But now that one of my best friends is gone, that's all I can think about whenever I'm in those situations.
If there's anything that I can do to better do my job, to impact more people, to get word out about just the dangers that are out there, to educate the community as a whole that might prevent them from getting into some kind of trouble, that's the absolute best solution, is people to learn it before they have to experience it and go through the pain themselves.
When I was told about what this was about and the whole purpose behind it, I thought that it was, I like what you guys are looking to do with it, about letting the knowledge out there, helping people realize that there's a lot of stuff going on right now, especially with even not just high school, middle school, all ages. It's starting at a young age, and if I can do anything to help preventing another incident like I had to do out on Lake Windward, then I'm all for it.
Station 1 call, 8524 mile.